She was the most beautiful woman the kingdom had ever seen. But by sunrise, the king's head was gone. No one saw it coming. Not the guards, not the queens, not even the gods. How did a stranger walk into a palace and bring down a whole kingdom? This is the story your grandmother refused to tell you at night because it was too dangerous to repeat out loud. Sit well. What you're about to hear is not just a story. It is a warning wrapped in beauty. Long, long ago, in the land of Obamu, the land of the crown, where the earth was young and the gods still walked with men, there lived a fearsome king named Obamu the Terrible, the leopard of the east. He was not terrible because he roared like thunder or spat fire from his mouth. No, he was terrible because his heart was made of stone and his hunger for power could not be filled, not even if he swallowed the whole sky. King Botu loved war like the tortoise loves tricks. He sent his soldiers out like angry bees, buzzing into peaceful villages, breaking huts, burning yam barns, and dragging men, women, and children back to Obudom in chains. Whenever he returned from battle, he brought with him slaves by the hundreds, treasures by the basket, and tears from the mothers of the land. He did not only capture people, he captured beauty. When he saw a woman with skin like ripe mango, or eyes that shone like river water under moonlight, he would take her as his wife, whether her husband still breathed or not. The most beautiful ones became queens in his palace. The others became servants, dancers, firewood gatherers. He had over 40 wives, and none could enter his chambers without first kneeling before a mirror shaped like a lion's mouth. They would oil their skin with palm kernel, paint their eyes with charcoal dust, and wear gold headdress, even though inside their hearts were heavy with sorrow. The men he captured were not spared. They were tied with ropes made from thorny vines and forced to build walls, roads through swamps, to fish from dangerous waters, to fight lions for the king's amusement. Many died with no one to bury them. Their spirits still roam, crying out in the wind, in the village of Ujukiri, not far from the crocodile marsh. The people sat in silence. They had tasted Mbotu's cruelty and bitterness not once, but 3 times. He had raided their farms, stolen their sons and daughters, and pressed them into bondage like cassava in a mortar. Their hearts festered with anger, but they were weak like the rain that taps the rooftop, but cannot pierce the thatch. But among them lived an old woman. Not just any woman. She was called Iya Oro, the wind that walks, bent like a question mark, with eyes like burning coal. Her back was bent like a banana stem, her eyes deep like the forest stream that sees both moon and sun. They said she could speak with the river spirits, brewed potions, pluck stars from the sky, and turned herself into any creature that pleased her fancy. And so, when the people of Ukwakiri gathered under the Iroko tree, mourning their losses and shaking with anger, they said, "We have no spears sharp enough. We have no men strong enough, but we have Iya Oro." So the people of Union Kiri knelt before her, pounding their sorrow into chants. "Iya Oro, great mother of shadow," they cried. "Obambotu has made us weep salt tears once again. Deliver us. End him." And Iya Oro, the old woman of 1,000 secrets, nodded once and said, "To kill a python, you do not fight it. You feed it a bird that has swallowed poison." Then the old woman laughed, and the wind carried her laughter like a bird flying over mourning huts. She reached into her calabash and pulled out a knife made from the fang of the river crocodile. "I shall not come to him as smoke or shadow," she said, "but as beauty, for even the lion forgets his teeth when he is busy admiring the peacock." And so she bathed in 7 rivers. She rubbed her skin with the oil of snake eggs. She drank the fire of charms and whispered her true name into the mouth of the wind. When she was done, She was no longer old. She had become Orima, a maiden whose beauty could make a blind man blink. Her skin was smooth like oiled okwa leaf. Her waist rolled like the river's dance. And her eyes, her eyes held secrets deep enough to drown a wise man, with a knife hidden in her breast and death trailing her shadow. Orima journeyed to Obodom, where Obamu ruled with thunder in his hands. That season, the village was alive with celebration. The yam barns were full. The warriors had returned victorious. A festival of drums and praise singing lit the land like stars on a moonless night. Orima arrived just as the sun bowed its golden head behind the hills. She did not knock, she walked, and the village paused. Old women forgot their tales. Young men forgot their strength. Even the talking drums stammered. "Who is she?" they asked. "From which womb was this river goddess born?" they murmured. They called her the daughter of beauty, the evening moon, the flower that made men bleed in their hearts. Obamu, seated upon his throne of lion skins, heard the murmur travel like fire from one mouth to another. He raised his staff. "Bring her," he said, and they did, with heads bowed, for the king was a man who swallowed what he wanted, be it land, gold, or woman. Orima stood before him. Obamu looked once, then twice, then forgot the taste of war. "You," he said, "shall be my bride before the next cock crows." Orima bowed, her lips sweet as stolen honey. "As the king commands." "So the wind obeys," she said, her voice laced with charm. The feast grew wilder. The next cockcrow evening, the palace drums beat in celebration. King Mbotu, proud and boastful as ever, announced to all, "I have married the finest flower in the forest. She shall cook for me with her own hands." The people clapped and sang, but not all were happy. The old wives of the king sat in silence, their wrappers tight, their lips tighter. They muttered to themselves, "This one walks too quiet, her eyes too sharp, her silence too sweet." But who could speak against the king? His word was like yam. Once pounded, it cannot be returned whole. She cooked for him with her own hands, a pot of pepper soup laced with sweeping charms drawn from the spine of night birds. She fed it to Mbotu herself, bit by bit, smile by smile, and the king, who once drank palm wine like river water, now sipped her potion like a baby goat drinking from its mother. He smiled, he laughed. Then he slept. Like a goat on sacrificial eve, Obamu snored in the arms of danger. But that moment would last forever. Midnight crept in. Even the crickets held their breath. The moon refused to watch. And in the stillness, Orima rose. She reached into her bosom. Her fingers touched cold iron. Not just any knife, but a sacred one. Whispers from the land of the dead. She tiptoed close to the sleeping king. His mouth was open, his snore deep like the growl of thunder far away. Without blinking, without fear, without mercy, she drew the blade across his throat. Then, shick! The blade sang. Obambotu's head fell like ripe fruit. One stroke, one silence, one death. She wrapped his head in white cloth, kissed his forehead once, and whispered in a voice colder than the river, "Let your greed die with you." She placed it in a goatskin bag, tied it with thread drawn from the skirts of midnight. She locked the door with her own hands and slipped out of the palace like smoke from a dying fire. Before the first cock crowed, not even a dog barked at her shadow. She was gone. The guards snored, the stars blinked, and Orima, ya Oro, returned to Ujukiri with the head of the king swinging gently on her back. At dawn, the palace was quiet, too quiet. The guards stood outside with spears in hand, but inside their hearts danced with fear. A king had not called. The lamps in his hut still burned. When the dew still kissed the yam leaves, and women had not yet fetched water, Obambotu's head wife, Queen Awele, rose to greet her husband as was her duty. She wore her finest wrapper, tied her gele high, and carried fresh palm wine in a calabash. She reached his door and called gently, "My lord, the sun beckons. Will you not rise and lead your people?" No answer. She called again, louder this time. Still, the silence was heavy, like wet cloth on a frail child. Alarmed, she knocked. No answer. She called the guards. The palace maids came running. Elders were summoned. The door was broken, and there upon the bed made of lion skins, laid King Botu with no head. A cry tore through the kingdom like thunder across the sky. "You!" the queen wailed, tearing her wrapper, rolling in the red earth. "The king is gone! The king is gone!" The talking drum was beaten not for joy, but sorrow. Children were snatched from play. Markets emptied. Mothers clutched their babies tight. Warriors howled in grief. The air tasted like salt and metal. But none remembered the stranger with the hips that sang and the eyes that swallowed stars. None asked of the bride who had come with no clan, no kin, no name. She was gone. Gone like the morning mist after the sun's breath. They wailed. They poured libation. They beat their chests and asked the ancestors why. But the ancestors had already turned their backs. Far across the river, in the hills of Ujukiri, the people danced. Iya Oro had returned, not as a maiden, but as herself, wrinkled, wild, and wise. She dropped the head of Obambotu before the chief of Ujukiri and said, "I have plucked the hawk that stole your chickens." The king stood up, raised the head, and cried out, "Today, the curse of Mbotu is broken." They sounded the drums of war, but not the drums that dance with praise. These were the drums that called blood. "Oduko, Oduko, Oduko," they roared. That very night, the warriors of Itu painted their faces with charcoal and red oil. They took their long canoes and paddled silently through the creeks like crocodiles in mourning. Back in Obodom, the people were still crying. Their tears had not dried. Their guards were asleep. Their drums were still. The elders gathered beneath the sacred Iroko. The women poured libations. The children, wide-eyed, did not know whether to play or pray. Yet none prepared for war. Because no one expected the sky to fall on the same day the ground caved in. As the villagers cried, drank, and beat their chests, the canoes of Ujukiri crept like lizards in the night. With a shout and a thunderous cry, they descended. The people of Obodom, leaderless and grieving, were caught like fowls in a bushfire. Their warriors, brave though they were, had no drumbeat to follow, no command to obey. They fought, yes, but like men with broken arrows. Without a king, the warriors captured men and bound them in ropes. They gathered the women, and those who were fair in face and body were dragged to be wives of Itu chiefs. The rest made into slaves. The palace burned. The shrines were destroyed. Mbotu's mighty throne, once polished with pride, was thrown into the river. And just like that, a kingdom vanished, and the village of Mbotu fell. The last word of the wind. Years passed, and the story of the beautiful stranger who killed a king was told under moonlight, beside fires, from old mouth to young ear. Some say Oya Oro disappeared into the forest and was never seen again. Others say she returned to the spirit world, rewarded by the gods of justice. Moral of this story is that not all that glitters is gold. A smooth face may hide a crooked heart. When the drum of beauty beats too loud, the ears of wisdom must listen carefully. For the enemy that kills you does not always come with a knife. Sometimes she comes with a smile and food cooked in silence. If this tale held your breath and stirred your spirit, don't just pass like a silent shadow. Tap the like button like a village drum. Before we go on, my people, tell me, which land do you watch from? Drop your village or city in the comments. And if you want more tales like this, tales your grandmother was too afraid to tell, then hit that subscribe button and ring the bell like you're calling the elders. Another tale is coming, and next time, it might knock at your door.